Cinema Worms.
Discussing everything from Grima Wormtongue to the Shy Halib.
I'm Sabib.
And I'm Linz.
And this is Cinema Worms Podcast.
The first toilet to be shown on screen was in Alfred Hitchcock's 1936 film, Secret Agent.
Ooh. So today we're going to be talking about The Brutalist, which we saw at the weekend. Directed by Brady Corbett, whose work as an actor includes cult classics that you might have seen, like 13, and the remake of the 1997 film Funny Games that he was in with Michael Pitt. And he had his directorial debut with a film called The Childhood of a Leader, which came out in 2015. So he wrote the script for The Brutalist with Mona Fastvold, who directed the adaptation of The World to Come in 2020, which is a film we saw together.
Oh, I love that movie.
And I think about it so often. I really, really enjoyed that film, and at the same time, something about the premise that I won't spoiler here makes me really angry to think about, so I remember it with this strange mix of pain and pleasure. However, there will be much more pleasure here as we talk about The Brutalist. The film stars Adrian Brody as Laszlo Toth, a Hungarian architect who comes to America after escaping the German concentration camps of World War II. And he's waiting for news of his wife, who's played by Felicia Jones, and his niece. And in the meantime, he's trying to find work with his cousin Attila's furniture store. So in a series of events, which we won't spoiler for you, he is commissioned by millionaire Harrison Lee Van Buren, the most upper middle class American name I've ever heard, to build a community center in honor of that businessman's late mother. So I thought this film was really, really interesting in a bunch of ways. We obviously can't go into all of the ways that it was so interesting, but hopefully we'll be able to touch on some and do it some justice here. Now, the first thing I want to say is that the budget for The Brutalist was only $9.6 million, which seems insane given the scope of the film. It's an immense 3 hours 35 minutes long, and it currently has 10 Oscar nominations, equaling Wicked's haul, which is quite impressive.
Just considering the fact that we just saw Wolfman, its budget was $25 million,
Wolfman, which we'll be talking about afterwards.
I really can't believe that this film was made on $9 million. But I'm going to have to do some research into that. Before we started recording this, I basically screamed out loud, realizing who Brady Corbett was. I understood that he had acted before, but then I put it together in my brain, and I'm like, he was in Mysterious Skin.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? This dude is my age. He's out here acting as a teenager in films like Mysterious Skin, and then has been a filmmaker since his mid-20s to create something so epic in scope. I mean, I guess only a young, ambitious creator like this could do this. It's a real feat.
It does make me feel like we're sleeping too much and perhaps should be working more.
Yeah. We need to hustle.
I need to hustle like Brady Corbett, and I need that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, we're the same age. I can't believe this. But I mean, this film is about a lot of things. It's really hard, I think, to discuss in our little mini-sodes. But if we want to get into what makes this film great, and even its flaws, right, are part of what makes it great. It's trying to tackle the journey of a very complex person surviving trauma as they immigrate, leaving their homeland, coming into the myth of America, of capitalism, of these demons that are never named, really, that are lurking under the surface. Also, how class
is defined in America, and the potential and also rotten evils of capitalism, and a very mysterious take on Zionism.
Architecture and what it can mean, how it can connect to one's soul. And then there's a lot to say about just the way the film was made in terms of cinematography, the acting, all amazing.
So quite a list to get through. But okay, so one thing that I wanna touch on before we move on to the actual acting, because I thought it was pretty fantastic throughout, is that you just said it was about the journey. And I don't disagree with that. But towards the very end of the film, which is split into multiple parts and then an epilogue, one of the characters says that it is not about the journey. She actually says to an audience, it is not about the journey, it is about the destination. And I thought that was really interesting because I agree with you. I do think it is about the journey, but she is perhaps speaking on behalf of Laszlo Toth, who at that point is quite old and is kind of looking back on his life and reflecting. He is not speaking for himself, someone else is speaking for him. And I kind of thought that was an interesting take on how people have interacted with him his whole life. People are constantly talking to him and sometimes at him about who he is, how he's presenting, what he should be, what he should do, what his art means, and he is very rarely given an opportunity to actually talk about the things that he is and feels and believes for himself. And even when he is, when this millionaire Van Buren, played by Guy Pearce, asks him at one point about art, he gives an answer, but it feels considered, it feels a little studied. It does not necessarily, he is giving what I think is probably an honest answer, but he also knows to whom he is giving this answer. It is the guy with the power and the money who might well be, commissioning him to do something in future. But let's talk about the acting, because most of the actors in this film have now been nominated for Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Actress. So who was your standout, if any, here?
I would say that everyone stood out.
Not Felicia Jones, who almost stole the show.
Is it Felicity or Felicia?
Felicia.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Felicity.
Hope I don't have that wrong.
So
I think it is Felicity Jones.
I think they all bring something really dynamic and interesting to their performances. Obviously, Guy Pearce is giving maybe the most brash performance. And he's extremely both seductive and also menacing.
Seductive with that mustache?
In terms of his allure, not sexually.
I mean, I like a Tom Selleck, don't get me wrong, but yeah, not perhaps.
There isn't something about a charisma to him, but also just a brutishness. Brutism.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing. If you wanted to go the Jane Austen route, you could have also called this film Brutalism and Brutality, because it does have this kind of intrinsic thread, and there's a scene where they go and look at marble, right? And it's in this quarry. It's been hewn, but very roughly. It's white, but previously to this scene, Laszlo Toth has talked about how you can see the marble and you can see the dark veins of it. And in this scene, you actually get to go into the quarry and see those things. And it kind of made me think, in amongst the art, there is this beating heart of brutality within the brutalism, and it is exemplified by Van Buren here. He is an uncomfortable character to watch quite a lot of the time. Even when he's nice, he's not very nice. He's a snake. He's poised. I don't think that there's ever anything he's done in the film that is simply a nice act. It's always to some sort of end.
Yeah.
I was always waiting for him to do something kind of horrific, and I was not disappointed in that respect. He proved to be a deeply unpleasant character.
And yeah, Felicity Jones is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She brings this sort of her trauma presents in a different way than Adrian Brody. There's a sort of at times she almost takes on this dreamlike quality. She's very evocative. Her performance is very emotional. Adrian Brody is mercurial, guarded, emotional, but also always kind of at arm's length.
A little bit like Timothy Chalamet's portrayal of Bob Dylan in A Complete Unknown. There is a level of the asshole to Laszlo Toth, but at the same time, he has clearly suffered some very deep trauma that obviously Bob Dylan has not experienced in his lifetime, and that has stayed with him. However, a lot of other people tend to be interpreting that on his behalf, or kind of claiming what that might mean, or trying to enforce some sort of personality or characteristic or identity on him that he doesn't necessarily claim for himself, which I thought was interesting.
And then just rapid fire to conclude, cinematography is very, very compelling in terms
beautiful.
of handheld, just totally disorienting, from the ground level, almost straight up view of people
Oh,
from like
yes,
just
yes.
sort of staggering through these dark spaces. That's how you begin the film.
Actually, could we mention briefly,
yeah.
because it is at the very start, one of the first scenes that you see is an upside down view of the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, after being in like a seasick,
Yeah.
dark boat.
So you kind of get this feeling of there's this disorientation, there's a dizziness, but also is this justice perverted and subverted that he's seeing? And that is also echoed by some of the kind of symbology that you see at the end as well, which we don't want to spoiler for you, but there is a nice bookending of that moment with something else.
Yeah, and from that handheld imagery to sweeping epic shots. It's like location. They're choosing the absolute best locations. I know they used VistaVision. I don't understand all the cinematography. I'm going to link an article that I want to read about that in there. I don't know if the second half works as well as the first.
Yes, I mean, I agree with that. At the same time, I do think maybe those flaws are kind of like the veins that we saw in the marble. Would it be the same if it was just a pure shining white surface of marble? Are the veins something that make it more recognizable to us? They are almost like the veins of the human heart, and are perhaps those not always in some way flawed?
Reach out to us if you have thoughts about this movie. We'd love to discuss.
Particularly the veiny marble. Talk to us about the veiny marble.
So we're going to be talking about Wolfman by director Leigh Whannell, who also directed, which I thought was the excellent The Invisible Man from 2020.
Really? Now, let me stop your introduction to tell you, someone once asked me what the scariest film was that I had ever seen in my life, and the answer that I gave, and to this day I still give, was The Invisible Man. I have never seen anything that scared me more.
It's something about it psychologically got under your skin.
I'm deeply. I don't know if I could ever watch it again. It made me so uncomfortable.
I'd watch it.
Anyway.
Again.
Oh no. Anyway.
So this is a recommendation for Invisible Man. If we're going to start with a Leigh Whannell film.
Yeah.
So basically, it's following. Well, initially, you're seeing an extended scene, tense scene, with this young boy named Blake and his paranoid, lives in the woods father. They live in a cabin in Oregon. The father is very harsh and kind of unfair with how he treats his son and how he thinks he should protect himself. But anyway, they're hunting. Things happen. They think they see something in the woods. You skip to Blake, who's like 35 or 40 now. Just bam.
We have an abrupt time skip.
30 years later.
Yeah, okay.
He's married to like a high-powered journalist played by Julia Garner. But their marriage is sort of on the rocks. But they both really love their daughter. Apparently her name's Ginger. I didn't remember that.
They said it a lot. And I thought it was a stupid name.
And he has got this bond with his daughter. They're like tight. He doesn't want to be like his father. His father's been missing for 7 years. They decide to go to Oregon to pick up his stuff from the old cabin.
Now that he's been officially certified as
deceased,
dead.
right? Mysteriously missing. And then shit goes haywire immediately. And their life is at risk as they're being chased by this sort of mysterious creature. And then Blake, the main character, gets scratched and starts to undergo a disturbing transformation into the Wolfman.
Oh gosh, Wolfman, I feel, and now that I know that this director also did Invisible Man, I'm almost more annoyed about it. And as you pointed out, The Brutalist had such a small budget compared to this. I don't know what they were spending it on. Were they spending it on all of the makeup that they put on Blake to sort of make him look like he was...
VFX or something?
I mean, okay, let's talk about what we liked, if anything, and then we'll talk about because some of the other effects I actually thought were really good, but one of the problems that I had with this film is that the introductory scene that you just mentioned there with Blake and his dad out hunting deer and are suddenly stalked themselves. They suddenly become the prey. It was really good tension. It was a really good setup. For the rest of the film, when we're back to adult Blake and we're kind of seeing how everything plays out, the acting was so understated at points as to be absolutely frustrating. The wife was just awful, a terrible character. she didn't come off sympathetic at all. I'm not really seeing, like, it wasn't kind of deep enough to see his bond properly. We're just kind of told that he has this bond with the child. The child actor was actually pretty good. The dialogue was really stilted. The editing was too abrupt. The narrative was all over the place. The logic of it made no sense. I felt so frustrated by this film in so many ways. But I do have some good things to say about it. But I have to say that I know I've just listed off most of the parts of a film and been like, bad, bad, bad. But like, I was frustrated by how it was playing out, and I kept hoping for it to be, for it to improve. There were points that it did. But can you tell me what you found frustrating about it before we talk about what we liked about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it a little bit more than you, but I was still disappointed by it.
I feel like your bar is lower.
Yeah, probably. Honestly, because I'm like, I've been in this mood for like these kind of moody, intimate stories. So, and I kind of liked how it was introduced, especially with him and his father in the woods. Just the way it was shot to ratchet up the tension was well done.
I wish it had kept that tension. I know, obviously you can continue the exact same tension when you're, cutting to him 30 years in the future, and we're seeing like his relationship. But by the time they're back at the farmhouse, I was hoping for like the same kind of, it felt really tight that first kind of 5 to 10 minutes. I was hoping for that again. I was hoping to see it play out in a quite a logical and satisfying way. One of the things that I felt really frustrating was that there are 3 structures on the compound. There's a farmhouse, there's a kind of greenhouse, and there's a barn. And when we see what is kind of like a drone view of that, I remember thinking, gosh, there's 3 structures there. I bet we visit them all during the course of this film. I bet they get chased somehow into all of these. And you know what? I was right. And I don't like to be right in these kind of films. I want to be wrong. I want to see some things subverted. Then again, I will say, while I didn't always like what was happening in the narrative, the effects when Blake begins to change and become something different, the fact that he could no longer understand what his wife and daughter were saying, and the fact that the cinematography also changed and has different effects so that you can see how he sees the world differently and he hears the world differently. It made it feel very surreal. It made it feel not of this world. And I really liked that. I actually wanted a little bit more of that. I feel like I'm almost having a Nosferatu problem with this film, where the things that it did that I liked, I wanted more of. But it was like, no, here's just a tiny little spoon for you. Here's another little spoon, and now you have to eat like a giant bowl of cold oatmeal to get another spoon of chocolate.
Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah, I also liked those effects. They really... I think the issue really is around pacing and the emotional tone at times. So the pacing, if I could give them notes, is like you don't get maybe to the barn in the middle of the woods quickly enough, but then you have him transform in a kind of like a really escalated time frame. So you don't get enough of that building up of tension of, oh my God, what's happening? I mean, they do some of that, but they really, I think he transforms too quickly.
Yeah.
So it gets to this point where he's all fucked up. He does not look right. The man is bad. Like, he looks awful. He's near dead.
Give me your Americanisms. He is janky. He is not right.
His face looks janky. And his wife's like, oh, okay.
She's like, really chill about
you
it.
Just can't. And then yeah, going from place to place to place on the property. I'm like, it's going to get old because you escalated so quickly. I understand you want to get to the action of him being the wolf man, but we want to dwell on that horror.
Yeah, and given what the director is capable of with things like Invisible Man, when you see Elizabeth Moss in that film, and there's a scene in the kitchen, and she feels like something's there, and the camera pans around an empty room, and you are thinking, I know, even just thinking about it gives me horrible, like, tight chest and goosebumps, and you are thinking, there's nothing there. This isn't a jump scare. I'm not going to see anything. I know he's there, and she knows that he is there. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. Look, that's ridiculous. But just the thought of it is like, we all know he's there, but she can't prove it. And that was much more frightening than having like just a wolf kind of roaming around the place, snarling a bit for like 90 minutes. It was frustrating. Come on, like, just let us have that tension. Let us have that. Don't pull your jump scares. Let us see more.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 fun facts to wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Abbott, who I think is actually a really good actor.
It was
also,
he played Blake, right?
He played Blake.
Yeah.
Julia Garner also is a good actress, but they made her like not act in this movie.
I feel like the note that they gave her was, "Can you not act at all, please?"
Yeah.
And she was like, "Well, okay, if that's what you want, sure, okay."
I'm mad about it, but I'll comply.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Abbott was in The World to Come. Actually,
Yes,
the 2020
yes.
film
Mhm.
with directed by Mona Fast.
Oh, It's a Small World.
With Brady Corbin, her husband,
Yes.
The Brutalist.
Mhm.
Also, Invisible Man had Elizabeth Moss and also Oliver Jackson Cohen
Mhm.
played the villain. He's in many Mike Flanagan projects. You should check out Mike Flanagan. The end.
Of course, everyone should check out Mike Flanagan.